Welcome everyone to the Art of Game Mastery. I'm John. This is my co-host Jack, and we're joined today with Tremor. Do you go by Tremor or Brandon?
Yeah, go ahead and go by Brandon.
Brandon. All right. Brandon's joining us. He's DM'd for GM'd I guess for his first few times recently. He's going to be joining us for a bit of a back and forth interview Q&A thing today. Before we get started in this, don't forget to like this on Twitch and we can't subscribe yet because we're not affiliated and whatnot. But once we post to YouTube, this will be up in a couple days. Remember to like and subscribe and all that jazz there as well. It really helps us out get our videos shown to a wider audience. So yeah, if you want to dive right in, Jack, you want to kick us off with the first question for him. First of all, why don't you tell us a little about yourself, Brandon? How you got started with tabletop RPGs and all that stuff.
Back when I was younger, had a couple in-person games, though didn't really have any groups after that, but I was always interested. Ended up finding Roll20 and got into some good stable groups and been loving it ever since.
Cool. Did you start with 5e? Is that where you started?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Awesome. And you're playing all kinds of games now, right? You're playing Pathfinder, Fate, you're GMing Starfinder. You've played, I think, did you play the Call of Cthulhu stuff, or no?
Haven't played Call of Cthulhu yet, but I definitely want to.
Okay. Cool.
So the dark sci-fi horror.
That is like the poster child for Roll20 right there. Like, found good groups on Roll20.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Now, it took a lot of trial and error. There was more unstable groups that fell through than stable ones, but eventually you find those diamonds in the rough.
It looks like my camera might have foobarred on me. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, you look rather inquisitive, John. John, why are you inquisitive? So, while John's working on that, okay, so we've already asked you if this was your first time for GMing. So we're up to how many sessions now?
We completed session 3. So yeah.
Okay, so how's your game going?
I felt not too bad. Haven't actually killed anyone yet, but that's soon to come.
Patience,
yes, patience.
It is.
But yeah, from feedback I've got so far, I feel it's going good.
So, were you nervous when you did your first run?
I did enough prep. Nah, there was definitely a few hiccups, and where all the players and myself are still learning the system. You know, everything's a little slow and clunky, but I feel pretty confident.
Okay. So you did a lot of prep. Do you want to expand on that a bit?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about how your prep went, because you were well prepared for this game. Like Jack and I both play in it, and it is quite well prepared, well done. So I'm really actually impressed about that.
So after everybody kind of started getting their characters made up, kind of figured out where the strengths, weaknesses of the group would be, and kind of tried to plan the combats accordingly, and as far as what kind of skills and whatnot would be needed to get through different challenges, try to plan around that. Module has a lot of good resources, but they have some weaknesses, like a lot of the maps kind of suck. So using the module and some new maps to give a little bit more versatility and exploration and combat.
So you're using a module?
Yes.
Which one?
At least as a skeleton.
Right. What module are you using?
It is Reach of the Empire.
Okay. How does that pan out for you? Did you like the way that it was? Because it was written by Paizo, so there might be some opinions on the layout. How did the module look and feel when you approached it? Have you read other modules?
A few. Not from Paizo though. As far as the feel, most of it, I'd say I like it. My only complaint would be a lot of their pre-done maps. I mean, some of them are literally 20 foot by 30 foot, little tiny maps that don't give a lot of room for challenge. other than the maps, the rest of it had a lot of information, a lot of tools, and
The maps
that
look,
make life a lot easier.
the map looks like stunning. So like, when I was playing in the game, the maps looked amazing. So what about the maps did you not like?
So those were maps I uploaded and created and set up the dynamic lighting. So those were maps that I put together.
Oh, so okay, so those didn't come with the module then?
No.
Okay.
The module does come with them, and you could definitely use them, but I wasn't very impressed with module maps. Mainly just due to the size. If it was a smaller group, maybe like a 2-3 person group, module maps would probably work. But especially more of like a 5-6 person group, it'd be cramped to begin with.
Sorry about that. We're having some technical. Okay, cool. Sorry, we had my camera flipped on us, and I had to fix that. And I forgot that when you put a new camera into OBS, it automatically starts recording sound for it. So I was getting sound from both Discord and my camera, so I had to mute the camera one. So apologies for that. We should be back on track now, though. Thanks, Alice, for bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely. So you did a lot of work. You put a lot of effort. It looked really polished for your first time. Did you have fun doing that? Did you have fun doing all the prep? Did you have fun running the game? Was there more fun to either or of those madnesses?
I actually had fun all the way around. Trying to make sure, say, the combat encounters I had planned were challenging but doable. I had been challenged in Discord saying it's impossible to kill people in Starfinder, so I think I've already proven that to be pretty incorrect.
Yeah.
It is challenging, especially to keep them knocked out. Nobody died, but they could have. It was close.
Yeah, it was very close.
Definitely decided to do some non-lethal attacks there. I liked that approach to it.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this in Discord a bit as well. You know, this is kind of advice to any GM out there, in that as the GM, you kind of do control when the players do die, right? Like, you don't have to fudge dice to make that happen. Like, you know, if it looks like there's going to be a TPK on your hands, you could try to come up with a different way of going about it. Like, maybe the players were captured or something, and that kind of provokes a new story or adventure hook that they have to escape from imprisonment or whatever. And sometimes that kind of, like, death is like the least interesting thing that can come out of a game, right? Like, once everyone's dead, the game's basically effectively over, right, for that character group. So it's more interesting sometimes if you spawn some kind of adventure out of being captured, and you still were taken out, right? You were still defeated, but it doesn't necessarily need to be death, so to speak. And I think that sometimes death is the most appropriate, but I think that, you know, having that toolkit in your back pocket is a good idea for a GM.
I would say that death is only the beginning, John.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
Sometimes the TPK is exactly what the party needs. If there's no cohesion, no teamwork, every man for themselves, and then, you know, death is not the end in any kind of tabletop RPG game. I mean, the big bad that got them, if they're a vampire, then is that really the end? No, because they probably made them all their slaves. You know, it's,
which in that case, if you did go the death route and they make new characters, now they have the possibility of fighting their old characters, which could also be fun. So.
It's funny you bring that up, because in a game I just completed, it's a Curse of Strahd game, and I love it. Most of our fatalities have become bosses. Like, we almost got TPK'd by a former PC character that became a vampire.
Yeah.
And another one has basically replaced the end boss, because they made some very poor choices. And you can do some really fun stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were kind of leaning that way. I saw in that encounter where, the counter was kind of we talked about this before the stream, but the counter was kind of designed with the idea that we'd have our full party there, and we were down one member, and that one member happened to be like one of our best fighters. And you kind of took that, like when one of our colleagues went down, you knocked him out non-lethally and tried to drag him away, which I thought was a really good way about that, because the story we're going through right now is that these group of people, so I guess, are trying to take over this colony, and capturing makes a lot of sense there.
Exactly. They want some intel.
Yeah.
Who are you guys? Who sent you?
Yeah.
John, what do you think about them making new character sheets? What if they don't make new character sheets? What if instead after they die, they keep on playing? How do you feel about that? They come back as
same characters.
They come back as undead. They don't have to make new characters. They're just.
I think if everyone's on board with it, and the GM can think of a way to make it work, I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. It's going to be a lot of work on the GM. He's probably got to restructure. They've probably got to restructure the story quite a bit to make it fit. Maybe the current story is just scrapped, and you go with something else entirely. But I think it's doable, and I think as long as everyone's on board with it, I think it's perfectly viable. What do you think about it?
I've been trying to do that in the Takasia game for a year or so now. I've actually done it twice, although it's been so under the radar. What do you think about it, Tremor? Brandon?
I think overall it's a phenomenal concept. Kind of leaves a lot of room to play. You could use a lot of different mechanics to kind of build off of it. Kind of on a similar concept. This was a game quite a while ago. I wouldn't quite say it was a TPK. It was more planned from the beginning, but the entire concept of the game is the party was brought back to life by a necromancer, so they're all undead and essentially serving the necromancer. And from there, you kind of have choices whether just to do as ordered or try and resist and take out the necromancer.
Undead campaigns can be really fun too.
I want to play in that game. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
They often end up being evil campaigns, but they don't necessarily need to be. I mean,
it could be a redemption arc.
Yeah, exactly. So, but
so tell us about your game. What happened in it?
Let's see. So far, the players have made it to the destination where they were hired to make a delivery of supplies to a frontier planet, and then pick up supplies on a passenger. A former client, definitely a good major acquaintance of the party. When they arrived there, though, they were met by hostile drones. They took care of those, though when they attempted to make landfall, they found themselves under fire from mounted weapons. After circumventing them and landing a ways off, they tried to make it toward the colony, though have found several challenges between local fauna and search parties sent out to just find the ship that it attempted to approach. So first few sessions have been very combat heavy, so we'll get into some got plans for some a little bit more social interactions here coming up. But so far the party's done pretty good. They haven't done much to avoid combat, but hey, combat's fun.
I actually think that having a combat heavy, first couple sessions have actually been kind of nice, especially because our first combat was actually ship combat. And I don't think anyone in the group has played Starfinder before, right? Yeah, I think all of us are newbies to it. So it was actually kind of nice to really drill in the combat rules to us, and then also get our feet wet with ship combat, which is something completely unlike any of the things you'd find in like 5e or Pathfinder II. Even like the third-party supplements for like airship combat and stuff that I've seen in like 5e don't even compare to the detail that the ship combat in Starfinder has. So it was definitely a high learning curve for the ship combat specifically, but it was fun. It was different. It was unique. It was challenging. I mean, we almost got taken out by a group of drones in our full-fledged ship. I'll say, which was
we almost got taken out. We took 4
You guys-
points of full damage.
You guys didn't do bad. They managed to get through your shields, but they really didn't do too much to the hull. So
Yeah.
you guys didn't do bad.
I was really impressed with the ship combat. It's an interesting mixed bag because before I had even played Starfinder, I had heard the chief complaint about some of the roles that you get kind of pigeonholed into can be a bit boring. I was the engineer, and if anyone has played Starfinder, then you probably know there are some complaints about that. I actually didn't mind it. I got right into I guess you could say the mindset of being the engineer in the engine room. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, I think some of the support roles on the ship. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Starfinder ship combat, each party member fills some slot in the roles of the ship. So like, one person's the captain, one person's could be like the first officer or first mate or whatever. One person, multiple people can fill multiple of these roles for 2, right? So like, you could have like 2 engineers if I remember correctly. So you could have engineers, you could have science officers, you could have, I forget the other ones off the top of my head, like gunners, and pilots, for instance. And once you pick one of those roles, you're kind of set in stone there for that combat. You don't really change around too much. You can like move off your station and go to like a gun for a spare gun or something, for instance, to make some attack rolls. But if your character's not built around gunnery so much, you're not going to do that great at it anyway. But a lot of the support roles, like science officer and engineer, for example, I feel like at level 1 they don't have a whole lot to do. They have actions they can take, but those actions aren't incredibly useful. They're pretty niche in what like their use cases. But I did notice that, like, looking forward, once you get higher in level, like I think level 6 around there, you start to get a lot more interesting actions than those support roles.
And that's the big thing, is it is kind of dry at low levels.
Yeah.
As you get up there are a few things I've kind of thought about possibly adding some actions, especially for the support roles.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it depends on what you're going against. If you're going against another crewed ship, there's a lot more actions than, say, mindless drones.
Yeah.
Or other horrors of space.
Yeah, I did find in
if you
regards
can't
to like
communicate with them, that takes a lot of actions that a lot of the support people can no longer do.
Yeah.
Were the drones from the module, or did you brew that?
The drones were from the module. I ended up giving you guys a bit higher tier vessel than level 1s are supposed to have, so I definitely added more of them. But that was kind of geared toward, you guys aren't going to have the opportunity to make major modifications as you level up on this planet, where it is a very, very young frontier colony. There's no space station, there's no spaceport. You guys are as far in the boonies as you can possibly be. That way I can throw some cooler stuff at you.
Gotcha. Yeah, I noticed character in terms of like character creation, though, it was very they had a lot of neat classes, but I felt like all the classes I looked at least, they were a very linear progression path. It very much felt like a step back from like Pathfinder 2e, where you have like all these different feats and you can like choose exactly how you grow. You still have feats in Starfinder, very much akin to like 3.5e style, but I don't know. I felt like as you level up and as you build your character, you have less of a flexibility in how you build it, and more of like it's more akin to like a 5e where you get these abilities at certain levels, and then you may have a few feats here to choose, here and there, but I'm very much anticipating a Starfinder 2e at this point, because I love the game, and I think that it could benefit so much from a Pathfinder 2e style character system.
I won't lie. There's a lot of stuff within Starfinder I wish was closer to 2e. The action economy system and like the some of the leveling stuff, though, you can definitely tell Starfinder is essentially a
precursor.
precursor to 2e, because you see a lot of stuff from essentially Pathfinder 1e, which it's based off of, and stuff looks like kind of they tried that led to 2e.
Yeah, I definitely see the lineage there, and like the
yeah.
It seems like there's definitely stepping stones between.
Yeah.
I mean, especially someone coming from 3.5. I played Pathfinder 3.5 for so long that when I go to Starfinder, I can see it's the sport. It's the missing link between Pathfinder 1 and 2e. And I'm really glad that like Starfinder is around, because that stuff that they play tested it's clearly like they learned from what worked from all their play testing, that they were able to build Pathfinder 2e. So
that's one of the most amazing things about Paizo, in terms of being a content creation company like that, is that they really do care about what their players think, and they really do take the feedback they get to heart. That's one of the biggest criticisms to like Wizards of the Coast versus like Paizo that I've seen on like Reddit and such, and is that Wizards of the Coast, they put out this Unearthed Arcana stuff that's usually pretty broken. People get feedback, and then once they release it, it's generally either not even like touched up at all, or it's touched up but in completely different ways than the feedback suggests that they do it, and the players are still usually not like, super happy with it. So it's an interesting difference, I guess, between how Paizo approaches their playtesting versus how Wizards of the Coast does.
Would you say that Wizards is kind of trivializing the previous stuff, and they want you to focus on the new thing so that you buy that new product and play that new thing?
I wouldn't say they trivialize the previous stuff. I would say that there's definitely what's the term I used before? Like a power bloat or something.
That's what I was going to point out, which kind of does go into what Jack is saying, is that a lot of the new classes, which are really cool and fun to play, but if you kind of compare them relatively power-wise, the new classes are always objectively more powerful. So it does entice people to get all the new books and all that, which I understand it's a valid business strategy. It's effective.
I also don't know if it's on purpose for that reason. I don't know if it's like, it could also just be that they're learning more about their system, and I don't know. It's hard to pin them with that. You know what I mean? Like, it could very much be be on purpose they're doing that, but I wouldn't put it past Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast. So it is what it is.
They have a lot of upper management, so a lot of those decisions that are being made, we have to, that has to be padded with the concept of how many, upper CEOs, people are dealing with this decisions. Are they even involved in the creative process? Are they finalizing it? Or are they just rubber stamping it? Or whereas you look at like the creators with Paizo, and they're like, you could ask, who is the leader? What's her name? Jessie? She's the current president of Paizo.
I think she's still there. Yeah, she's still the head.
Like, she's clearly still involved in all of the processes. And you can tell the difference between this conglomerate and a smaller company.
Yeah, I mean, Paizo, it's relatively big company in terms of like the stuff they put out, but in terms of like size of the company and like who they answer to, they're very much an indie company still. Like I don't know how many actual investors they have, but they're definitely, you can tell they still have a lot of control on the stuff they put out, and that's a really good thing in my opinion. It's going to be hard for them to stay that way if they keep growing, but we'll see what happens there. I kind of akin it to like a AA studio in video games. Like, you have your big AAAs, you have your like 1 to 3 people, single A indie studios, and then maybe you have like your Paizos, which are like a AA, right? That's how I kind of put it to an analogy. But, so you seem to be having a lot of fun running this. I mean, at least that's the vibe I get, as a player in your game. And obviously, us players are having fun. Jack and I have been raving about it. But is there anything you don't particularly, or you felt wasn't fun in like the prep process or running the game, or maybe something you didn't like about the system? We already talked a little bit about some of the shortcomings of like the more 3.5e inspired stuff that you'd like to see. Lisa Stevens, thank you.
I mean, nothing I'd say really have disliked. I mean, there's been some time management challenges, between work and stuff, and making the time, but beyond that, I mean, finding token art or tracking down cool maps.
How much
Fun
time do you think
setting
you
up dynamic
spend a
lighting
week?
isn't too bad. I need to spend more time on Forge. I've been playing around on Forge, making some maps on that.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Forge VTT is a Foundry as a service, basically. Instead of having to host your own Foundry VTT instance, it basically hosts it for you and lets you. It's kind of like a Roll20 version of Foundry. So normally with Foundry, you just buy the software, then you have to figure out how to host it yourself. Forge kind of like turns it into a service where you can go in, find groups, buy assets, all that stuff. So it's a lot more convenient, more expensive, but more convenient. Um, how much time would you say you spend a week in prep for your game? Given that you use so many like maps and tokens and whatnot.
I spent quite a bit of time on week 1, largely because I didn't expect the combats to take quite as long. So probably the week 1 prep I got done, I'll probably be good until like week 6.
Okay, nice.
But from there, I've been working on other stuff, getting further along at the moment. I mean, probably week 1, I probably spent a good 10, 20 hours.
Oof.
From there, I mean, from there, it's been more like, 2-3 hours a week.
Yeah. Yeah, it's at the beginning of a campaign, it's always hard, especially if it's a new game or a new group of players, because you don't really know what to expect. So you kind of have to a little over prep a bit and hope for the best. But so I definitely sympathize there.
Exactly. I think I'd say it couldn't have gone better. Like you said, so far it seems like everybody's having fun, and I've got plenty of content and such, and it's always better to be over prepared than under prepared.
Definitely, and 2 to 3 hours a week isn't that bad, really. The grand scheme of things. It's pretty good.
I'm sure once I get more to the point on where I was originally prepped for, I'll have to start devoting a bit more time again, but keeping ahead of the curve.
What do you say the most fun you've had in it? Is there anything that explicitly stands out as like this was a blast there, or this was like my favorite combat that I ran for sure, or anything like that?
Kind of like what you noted before. I definitely enjoyed the ship combat. I think, though there's a few little tweaks to the like we had discussed that could be done action wise, but I thought it was a lot of fun the way that it's set up. So I definitely look forward to adding more kind of vehicular combat because I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm interested. So I haven't actually like fully grokked the entirety of the rules of Starfinder yet. So is there like land vehicle combat as well rules for that, or is it less structured than like a ship combat? Is it more like a typical
for the most
skill
point
challenge?
it's going to be the same. It uses the exact same system.
Oh, okay. So it's still just as involved as a ship combat, where you're like having to rotate and move and okay. So that's really cool. Yeah, I definitely like to, get more seat time, so to speak, with the with the ship and the vehicle combat. That sounds like a really fun thing, and it's different, as I mentioned before. So it's something you don't get in other games as much. So. What about you, Jack? Is there anything you're particularly liking about Starfinder as a player?
I love and hate the ship combat. That is like the most exciting part of it so far. I had a lot of ideas. I think we talked about it already. Brandon, did you or were you thinking about adding any of the options in ship combat, like for future games down the road? Were you interested in seeing other options that the roles could be played?
You mean like the stuff that's in the extension books?
That and homebrew.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely something I'm considering. The thing at this point is where I'm just as new to the system as all the players. Is it's hard figuring out the balance on the homebrew. Something could seem like a really good idea, but ends up being totally game breaking because it's hard to make that judgment without more experience. So as we get more combats in, kind of see how some of the actions work, there's definitely a lot of interesting homebrew action economy and such that I think would be could be very fun. At this stage, it's just trying to balance out how it affects the long game,
Yeah.
and works along with, say, skills and action economy get down the road. How's it going to get a kind of a meta magicked in?
Right. You always have to worry about balance too. Like when you start tweaking like fundamental aspects of the game. I don't know. I always worry that like I'm gonna screw something up in a way I didn't anticipate, and it's gonna have like broader consequences than I anticipated.
That's the chaos. You just gotta welcome the chaos, John.
Yeah, I know.
It's pretty cool.
I'm always screwing up the power in my games because it's.
I know, but
fun.
I'm a very much when it comes to game design and stuff, I'm very much a by the rules person. I like consistency and rules in my games. So that's just kind of like a philosophy I take. So, and I completely understand not all GMs are like that. So, you know, each their own. But I'm just saying, like me personally, that's something I always worry about when I'm tweaking. Like if I'm like creating monsters or creating archetypes, stuff that can be tweaked over time. It's not a big deal. But like when I'm changing fundamental systems in the game, I always worry about that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. But
So-
long or short answer, yes. I definitely plan on adding additional actions because, kind of like what's been mentioned a few times, up until level 6, and even there, a lot of the actions are kind of dry for the support roles, which is why in a lot of games everybody says just jump on a gun.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of times happens. So making the support roles more appealing and giving them more to do, I think definitely has value.
I didn't think about that. Just jump on a gun. I love it. Was that? Did you get that advice from somewhere?
Just reading stuff on Reddit and stuff like that. So that's a lot of times in later end or mid to end game campaigns. A lot of times it's just that's all the party's doing is everybody is just shooting guns, and a lot of the rules kind of get ignored.
They just go out the window. So speaking of shooting guns, I'm having a lot of fun. I'm shooting guns. I'm sniping, and this would be the first time I've gotten to really do what like I was trained to do. I'm used to being able to shoot 300 yards, and I have yet to play a single game where I feel like I'm accurately shooting at a great distance. And with the sniper option, 750 feet. It's not bad. I like that option. Level 1, I can snipe, and it has some interesting, would you say, trade-offs as far as balance and power. Because one little mouse with a sniper rifle can, take out 3 dudes before the conflict ever starts.
If he rolls well, or if they roll well, right?
Because
I think I haven't used the sniper rifles in the game, but I believe after like 150 yards or something, or 150 feet, they start getting penalties to your rolls. Is that correct, or something like that?
So the snipers have some interesting things. So they've got a standard range. So say if you're just shooting from the hip, and then from there they have a sniper range. So if you use your move action to essentially aim, then it gets a new range. So say 250 feet. Which I believe is the one that Jack is utilizing. So you have to use additional action economy to get that additional range. And then there's furthermore additional weapon enhancements that can add to that.
I see.
Like tripods and such.
I do like that there's like a weapon attachment system in Starfinder. It's a really, really neat facet to me.
I feel like the weapon attachment system was like the birthplace of the runes for Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
It very much could
agree.
be, yeah.
I'm excited to see where Starfinder 2 goes. We just started playing Starfinder 1 and we're already like, where's the second one?
we want more.
I mean, they're still putting out books for it, so it's obviously still at the top of the radar. So I'm sure they're thinking about it at this point.
Did you see the new Junkmancer? What's it called? Anybody,
I saw something about it on Instagram. On their Instagram, they posted like a picture of it.
I haven't looked at it in detail, but I did see some content on it.
They're still pumping out. So it's like I don't think Starfinder is dead. I'd have to look back at history. Does anybody remember like there was no real brief period between fourth edition and fifth. They were still pumping out fourth edition content when fifth all of a
Were
sudden
they?
like was there like a hiatus or was there I don't remember there
I don't
being
recall either. I know they
I really
slowed
don't
down
know
on
on
fourth
that.
edition content because it wasn't as popular as a game, but I don't recall if they kept making it right up to 5e was released.
and so like
Yeah, I mean, chat
Pathfinder
let
was
us know.
making,
But
Pathfinder was making content for quite a while, then they dropped Starfinder. They've been making Starfinder content all this time, and I don't remember how big of a gap there was between Pathfinder 1 content and 2e. So I should look at that. But that's an interesting thing.
yeah,
to
I
see.
didn't really play much Pathfinder 1e, so I didn't really pay much attention to it. That'd be a good piece of information, though.
Mhm. So what kind of patterns can be identified?
I am going back to the weapon attachment thing, though, and then the RPG I'm working on, I am kind of taking some of those ideas and thinking about how they could fit into like a fate context with weapons and whatnot. So that'll be kind of interesting to play with. But I really like that facet. And it's not just guns, right? Like you can add attachments to other things too. Like and there's also like cybernetics and all that stuff. So there's a lot of thought into all that.
Yeah, the list of weapon upgrades and enhancements and weapon manufacturers.
Mhm.
You can customize weapons to a ridiculous degree.
And every book they release has like new stuff like that too, which is awesome. Even if it's not focused on that kind of thing. That is one thing I like about the Starfinder books. I went to a new game store that reopened, I guess, after the whole pandemic thing, and I thought I'd help them out a bit. So I'm like, I'm gonna buy a few RPG books. So I bought like a stack of Starfinder books. Various like add-ons like operations manual, character operations manual, some of the starship combat ones, couple of the bestiaries, the alien archives like they call the Starfinder. And I noticed that all of the rule books have like a little bit of everything in them, even if they're not focused on that thing. So I thought that was really cool. You can tell they really put a lot of love into that content, and
Oh yeah.
I'm sure it's only a matter of time before we get a 2e. How soon that'll be, it's hard to say. I think the game came out like 2016, so like right before Pathfinder 2e, which is interesting.
That sounds about right. I believe.
Which is why
or might
if
I'd have to look.
we take a look at the markets, and we could probably predict when we'll see a Starfinder 2.
I mean,
But of course,
5e was released. Yeah, 5e was released in 2014, and there's already players talking about, oh, when's 6e coming out? When's 6e coming out? Personally, I think if they were to release a 6e, they very much risk shooting themselves in the foot there. 5e is such a behemoth right now that if they move on from it, it's very risky, especially if they start to do things differently, because people might not like it as much. And if you think about it, everyone starts with 5e these days, it feels like. And if they made a 6e, it's hard to say that everyone would start with 6e. Now 5e people are already reluctant to switch to other systems because they love 5e so much, which is fine. It's their own prerogative. But 6e would be another system at that point. I don't know how many 5e people will be willing to switch to 6e when we already see a lot of them not willing to look at other systems with a close eye, right?
I think you're exactly right, and I think that's what they're essentially testing with their new. What's the new version of 5e? The crunchier version.
Oh, Advanced 5e or whatever. It's not by Wizards though, right? It's by a third party studio. I don't know if Wizards is involved in that or not, to be honest.
They probably are behind it, backing it.
I would have to look more into it. I honestly haven't looked much into it. I mean, I'd assume they'd have to be because, Wizards of the Coast keeps a pretty close eye on all their content.
Yeah. I mean, they have it all under the OGL. Well, not all. That's actually another nice thing about Paizo is, so another difference between 5e and Pathfinder, and really Starfinder, any of the Paizo stuff, is that they're both under the OGL, but in 5e, only very specific stuff is under the OGL. And whatever's in the SRD, the system reference document, is under the OGL. Everything else is not. So like if you look at the SRD and the stuff that's under the OGL, only like one subclass of each class, only like one heritage of each race is covered under the OGL. Whereas with Paizo, literally everything that isn't part of Lost Omens specific is part of the OGL. That's why we have things like Nethys, which Paizo is pretty much sanctioned at this point, but it has everything under there because literally everything that's not Lost Omens lore specific is part of the OGL. And even like non-Nethys wiki sites have all this stuff as well, and they're perfectly legally able to. So that's another place where Paizo differentiates itself from like Wizards of the Coast, is that they're more willing to release their content for free, whereas like with 5e you end up having to, and there's not, from a business sense this makes total sense. So I don't condemn Wizards for doing it like this, but you have to if you are making third-party content for 5e, you have to be very careful about which stuff you use and which stuff you don't use.
Yeah.
And also, the D&D Beyond stuff is kind of a sticking point for a lot of even 5e players, where a lot of these people buy these books and they have to buy them again on D&D Beyond, and then they buy them again on Roll20. Whereas Paizo is releasing like basically all their stuff. If you buy their stuff once off their website, you get like everything kind of deal, which is kind of nice.
It's the difference is that cash grab. I can kind of see that like the history of World of Warcraft, the online MMO sensation, is kind of like, I feel like in the same boat financially and with their market as 5th edition is.
Well, World of Warcraft's in the fucking tank. Sorry, not to mean to cuss, but in the tank financially right now because of the whole recent thing. But
let me explain. They're in that same phase where at the end of Wrath of Lich King, the beginning of Cataclysm, where they are at the biggest player base they've ever been, where there's huge continuous growth, and they've been releasing content. They've been releasing content. They are consistent, not nearly as much as say,
Yeah, I don't know if you've been keeping up with the stuff recently. World of Warcraft's down to like 2 million players right now. It's
very up to date on it, and this is what I'm predicting is that if they don't create a 6th edition, that is what we're going to see.
Yeah.
Is we're going to see 5th edition tanking because it's going to be so out of date. I mean, if you look at, say, like a Call of Duty franchise, they don't branch out at all. What they do is they let other indies, their development companies, make new shooting games with new physics, with new things, and then they incorporate that into their next game the next year because they're making a new game every year or two, right? And 5th edition is going to alienate and become further and further away from the rest of the tabletop RPG company because Pathfinder is over here saying, what about 3 actions? Fate over here is saying, the way that we do things is very, very different. Call of Cthulhu, player attachment, no, you get to die. And they keep offering these different things, and 5th edition is over here in its little bubble, and it's slowly going to start to rot.
Yeah.
Call of Duty 5 5th edition hops. Yeah, basically like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it very much does feel like a lot of the community is gravitating towards these narrative style games, or like narrative RPGs like Fate or Call of Cthulhu or what's some other ones like what's the PTB? Something by the Apocalypse. I can never remember that acronym. I picture the acronym. I can never remember what it stands for. Powered by the Apocalypse system, and I see where 5e tried to go a little bit in that direction, but I feel like they only went halfway there, and now they're in a spot where they're not really either place. They're kind of like this weird like middle thing where it's not really good. It's not really especially good at the narrative side of things, and it's not really especially good at the more gamey combat side of things, or like crunchier stuff. It's just kind of like in this middle where it's kind of like mediocre at both things, but it's such a big mainstream thing that it's kind of like I don't know. It's just kind of this behemoth in the industry that kind of doesn't really have a unique niche that it's carved out. It's just kind of like taking a little bit from over here and a little bit from over here, smashed them together or rolled them up in their hands, and this is kind of what you get, and people love it. So I don't know.
I mean,
it's going to be
If
interesting.
you look at Matt Mercer and you look at his shows, what's that Critical
Role.
show? I have watched some of their stuff, and I have to like ask myself a lot of times, like, are they really playing 5th edition?
They are.
Like,
They are.
No, so the players have character sheets from 5th edition, and the GM is playing, bringing stuff, but they are doing such a theater style game.
Oh yeah, a
that
lot of it's very scripted.
they
That's been
would
confirmed
benefit
already.
better
Yeah.
From playing in Fate, they would benefit way better from playing in something less rule restrictive.
So it's actually funny you mentioned that because Critical Role, the first campaign they played and streamed, they started streaming it halfway through the campaign. Before they started streaming it, they were actually playing Pathfinder 1E. And they switched to 5e when they started streaming because it was less rules intensive and would be easier to stream. So it's actually funny you mentioned.
5th edition. I mean, we all agree that's 5th edition's easy to run.
Yeah, as a GM, 5e is incredibly easy to run, but it's also incredibly frustrating to run because you feel like you're making shit up on the spot all the time without any help from the game, and that's my number one complaint as a GM. As 5e, I don't mind GMing 5e. Throwing it out there, I'm not condemning the system at all. But I, as someone who enjoys making and playing games, I like to have structure in my stuff. Unless the game itself is designed in a way to not have that structure, but facilitate you in making those decisions without that structure. Like Fate is a very good example of that. It's very much anything goes with Fate, but the rule set around combat and around social interactions and encounters is designed in a way that makes that a lot easier and collaborative endeavor. So I don't feel like I'm on the hook for everything. And I think that's where narrative RPGs shine more, is being a more collaborative experience. And the rules are designed to be hand wavy and not you feel like you're going to break something if you are hand wavy.
What do we think, Brandon? Would you run a 5th edition game?
I mean, if I had to pick, I'd probably stick between Starfinder and a 2E. But not to say I wouldn't consider it, but I definitely like the Paizo systems better. But again, I definitely like 5e, but mechanically, I like the Paizo systems better.
Yeah, I think a lot of people
unless it was
who
Curse of Strahd, I like Curse of Strahd.
I
think a lot of people who eventually give Pathfinder 2e or maybe Starfinder 2 a try eventually really end up really liking it. I think it's just getting those people to give it a try. That's the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that doesn't mean that they necessarily dislike 5e afterwards, right? I mean, it's perfectly okay to like both systems. Like, I don't mind 5e.
Yeah.
As a player, I don't mind it either. I just prefer Pathfinder 2e personally because of various things. Like, as a GM, the structure it gives you. As a player, the character flexibility and all that. But, let's see, what else we got on here? Oh, big one. So now you've had a few sessions. I think Pathfinder's Beginners Box could come with a lot of things that it probably doesn't already and could be improved a bit, but that's a discussion for another time. Their Beginners Box is a little lacking in my opinion, but
have you seen the Pathfinder Beginner Box that I got from, or not Pathfinder, the Minds of Phandelver box, the starting box that I got for 5th edition?
Yeah, it's not good either.
Black luster.
Yeah.
I was so... When I buy a box, I'm expecting, to get things in this box. You're like, I like the weight of this box. There are going to be some goodies in here. Yeah, there was a bag of dice, blue, standard Chessex style dice, and tiny paperback pamphlets. One rule book and one like a map-ish kind of like guide. That was it.
The rule book isn't even a full rule book. It's like the basic rules or whatever they call it. It's like a subset of the SRD, which is a subset of the rule book.
20 pages at max.
Yeah.
And it was tiny. It was very small. No minis, no tile sets. And I was like, why did I buy this?
Yeah.
I could have bought a full-on adventure and had a decent book that I could actually use later on to prop up my TV. Like,
You can download the basic rules that are included in that box for free. Yes, yeah, from their website.
and I mean, if you're doing Pathfinder, you might as well just use Nethies because everything is available on there. Buy their books, and when you need to look up something when you're in game, Nethies.
Yeah. If you're playing online, the books are. I mean, if you're playing at the table, you're not gonna necessarily have the flexibility to look something up quickly on Nethies like you can in an online game. But
Brandon, did you use Nethies while you were playing your game? While
Oh,
you're
yeah.
running your game? How often
Oh,
would
yeah.
you say you use Nethies when you're running your game? You've done 3 sessions, right?
It's always up.
you know what bothers me about Nethies and Starfinder though? It's never the top, even close to the top result on Google, unless you explicitly put Nethies in your search result.
I have it favorited, but yeah, if I have to look for it, I
Favorite.
actually just look for Pathfinder 2e and then just swap over to Starfinder because it doesn't search for some reason.
Yeah, I always end up with the Starjammer SRD whenever I search Starfinder, and I'm like, this isn't even the same game.
John, you would be pleasantly surprised to say, or hear me say that my favorited selection, I don't know, it's my cookies or something, my web
Your
browser.
bookmarks.
I go on to Nethies, it takes me to the Inevitables page.
Nice.
Every time. I don't know what I did. I need to figure out how to undo that.
But yeah, so you've got a few sessions under your belt now, and you've got some experience. What information would you give to other new GMs, that are in a similar position to you were before you got started? Like, what advice would you give them to just, to get started in their GM career?
Probably, honestly, just don't be all that intimidated. A lot of it is just having a good outline on where you want to get, kind of knowing what information you want to give to the PCs to try and direct them, and then kind of go from there, and just kind of have some plan Bs in mind for the inevitable, unpredictable scenarios. But really, yeah, the biggest thing is just go for it. It's really not that bad.
Yeah, and I think don't be intimidated is a good mindset there, because I think that it is a very intimidating thing to people, especially people who aren't familiar with or experienced in like improv and stuff like that. It's the same kind of advice I give to other people, as other new GMs as well. Is like, just try it. Worst case, you don't like it, but most of the time, if you're a new GM GMing for the first time, you're playing with new players as well. Most of the time, not always. But if you are playing with new players, they're not gonna know the difference. They're not gonna know that you're messing up or whatever. So just roll with it. If you are playing with experienced players, they're gonna understand this is your first time, and they're gonna be okay with you making mistakes. Like, you're not playing with robots. You're playing with people, and most people have empathy, right?
Some people.
But yeah, I think you're totally right there. I think people should just dive in, give it a shot. What's the worst can happen?
Exactly.
You're not going to ruin any
all the
friendships.
PCs, and it was a good time.
Yeah.
Get some character creation under your belt. Make a new character.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
We got a surplus of characters in your game.
So we're coming up on the 1 hour mark here. I figure, what's the worst that could happen? Well, I suppose a lot of bad things could happen, but you're not going to ruin any friendships with it by any means, I don't think. So
It's just the same approach. If you're starting to play a new card game, a new board game, you're getting down and sitting together with friends, usually with friends. If you sit down and play any game with your friends, you guys are going to have fun. Sometimes that needs to be that's a bit introspective. I know it needs to be said. If you guys are sitting down to do anything, you guys are probably going to try to have fun.
Yeah.
Right. So you're just inserting a tabletop RPG in there. Everybody's going to, learn the rules, or some people, already know the rules. That's not a bad thing.
Some people are just not going to learn the rules. You're just going to
Some people are just not
deal
going to
with
learn
them the
those
rest of the game. That's fine too.
You learn who those people are real quick, and you figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's a funny thing about the people who don't learn the rules is they don't know when you're not treating them fairly either.
Alos brings up a fairly good point. Brandon, would you have started Starfinder with a bunch of randos, or would you have started with a bunch of randoms?
It would have definitely been a harder sell. Being able to start with people I've played with and kind of know is definitely a pro, but I think if push came to shove, I would.
My first time was actually with a group of randos, except one person I knew, and they ended up becoming like some of my best friends when I lived in California. So,
I played with family for way too long before I played in an open setting with people I didn't know.
Well, this wasn't an open setting per se. So I had a coworker when I worked at Sony, who had this like game night with some of his neighbors / friends at the time, and they had been playing board games, every week for years basically, and they're like, we want to play something new, like we want to play something other than a board game, and he knew I was really into D&D, so he hit me up. He's also a friend of mine, like outside of work too, so I like hung out with him many times already. And he's like, hey, you play D&D, would you want a GM? I'm like, I've never GM before, I'm kind of hesitant. I'm like, I'll think about it. I'm like, who am I GMing for? He's like, oh, it's me and some friends. And I'm like, yeah, I'll think about it. And I hit him up like an hour later. I'm like, screw it, let's do it. I'm like, what's the worst can happen? So I met it was it was 4 other people plus him plus me. So I'd never met any of them except that one guy. But it ended up being a blast. They all had a lot of fun. They were very much not like super serious tabletop RPGers, so they were in it just to screw around, very much a Skyrim style of play. But hey, we had fun with it. We had to turn into had some drinks, some food every week or whatever. We played that campaign. So I think we started with Storm King's Thunder with like a bunch of tweaks on my end. We played for like 2 years, I think, and then we started a homebrew campaign and played another year, and then it kind of fizzled out at that point. They weren't having as much fun with it, and I was like, all right, well, whatever. We can always come back to it later. We played some one shots after that every now and then just to have some fun. But yeah, it ended up working well.
Heck yeah.
Definitely intimidating, but same kind of advice I'd give to that. Like, just dive in. Especially if you don't know them, I feel like there's really nothing to lose. Because worst case, you disappear and never see them again, right? Like,
it was fun. Bye.
So we've got upcoming events. There's going to be Gen Con. I don't know if you guys have heard. John and I are super stoked to go.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
So
Never been. Always wanted to go. I wish it was in LA like it used to be. It'd be a lot easier than going all the way to Indianapolis, but yeah.
I'm looking forward to a nice vacation in Indianapolis. Yeah. Vaccinated, we're gonna check out. So that will affect the next month. We will probably be doing more content and bringing you guys news. So stay tuned for that.
I will also be in PAX at PAX West at the beginning of September. So I don't know how much tabletop stuff we'll have this year, since I think the event as a whole is going to be a lot smaller because of the whole pandemic thing. But I'm going to take my camera and my mic and see if there's anything worthwhile filming while I'm there. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, look out for that. We do have a new website also. I've been like fiddling around with it off and on, so it may some things may disappear and then come back and stuff as I kind of just figure things out. But yeah, new website. It's going to make it easier for both Jack and I to produce content. As sort of a test bed for that, I did release the new dancer archetype that I promised you guys for a long time now. Definitely give feedback on that. I'm open to changes with it after the community gives it, their once over. So let me know what you think for sure. The art on it is incredible. A very talented artist did that for us, so thank you to them. I don't have their name on hand, or I would do a shout out. I apologize if you're watching this.
17 feet. Nice. The dancer's really cool. I've already glossed over it. John and I haven't gone back and forth on it. I'm looking forward to play testing it. So if you guys get a chance to check out the dancer archetype, let it known to your players, see if they're interested in testing it, give us feedback.
Thanks,
Yes,
awesome. Thanks to Pathfinder II subreddit for a little assistance on balancing one of the feats that are in there. They were a huge wealth of information in that regard, so I really appreciate them for that.
Let us know what you think on Twitter or Instagram.
Yep.
Also, we're on Reddit.
And again, this will go live on YouTube within the next couple days, usually by tomorrow, but don't want to commit to anything, you know.
What video are we doing next, John? Did you have that on the calendar?
We do have it on the calendar, but I don't have it off the top of my head. Let's see. We have next week conditions. Talking about conditions in Pathfinder 2e. So
that's going to be a fun one.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
So feel free to let us know what you guys are looking for about conditions, questions, concerns, comments,
Yep.
and
any specific conditions you want us to go over, definitely let us know. But yeah, till next time, happy gaming.